Hey guys, and welcome back to Sports Design School. Now today we're continuing our Sports Design School playoff. As last round we moved from 8 competitors down to 4. Now this is the semifinals, and as we move on to the next round, we will narrow it down to just 2 competitors to battle head to head to be our inaugural Sports Design School playoff champion. Now, who are the competitors? We have Ryan Warford, Ben Westlake, JakeCreated, and Tyler Moreno. Now, they're all super talented designers from different ages and backgrounds, and I'm super excited to present you the round 2 designs this week. Now, a little bit about our competition. So if you remember, round 1, we did our prompt as Trevor Lawrence was drafted number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Created a graphic on social media to celebrate that announcement. And so we got all of the different results, and I'll kind of throw up what each of our designers did here real quick so that you can kind of see what those designs were. If you haven't checked out those videos, make sure you go back and watch round 1. It was super exciting. I guarantee you'll enjoy that content. But now we're moving on to round 2, which means we have a completely different prompt. And the prompt that we came up with was Tiger Woods has announced his retirement. Now, a little bit of a foreknote, if that is a word. I announced the prompt before Tiger Woods got in the car crash. So whether it's voodoo, whether it's the jinx, whatever you want to call it, we are sorry, Tiger Woods. But that is the prompt for this week's round 2 of the Sports Design School playoff. And so I'm super excited to see these different designs. In this video in particular, we'll be talking about Tyler Moreno and JakeCreated, and they have 2 extremely different design processes, which I think you're really going to enjoy. And then we'll have Ryan Warford and Ben Westlake compete later this week in another video. So if you're enjoying this series, if you're enjoying our channel, make sure you drop a like on this video, and of course subscribe if you aren't already. But let's go ahead and jump in and see what Tyler has created for us. Now here we have Tyler Moreno. Now a little bit of a background on Tyler. Tyler is from Clinton, New Jersey, and according to his Instagram bio, he is just 14 years old. So that is super awesome to see him getting involved in the Sports Design School playoff. Now a little bit of a refresher, if you don't remember, Tyler created this graphic for the round 1 of the Sports Design School playoff, where he had to create the Trevor Lawrence to the Jacksonville Jaguars design. And if you remember, Tyler was the one that did everything on an iPad. So I'm super excited to watch his process here in round 2 and see how he continues to use the iPad for his designs. So I'm just going to jump right into his recording, and then we can break down each step of the process. So here we have him, looks like back in the same iPad app that he was using last time. And it looks like we're just going to start off by doing a quick cutout of Tiger Woods. Now, this is a very different process than what we do in Photoshop, as you can imagine, but it's always fun to see how people have different methods of using different tools to create the same style of design. So we can see he's kind of going through all of the different cracks. Now, if you remember last time, Tyler's design, he had like that wave splash that he did on the Trevor Lawrence design. And that would be actually like pretty simple to do in Photoshop. You just go to like brusheasy.com or something, and you just search up like water splash brushes or something like that. And then you can literally just like do it in probably maybe 20 seconds in Photoshop. But it was so interesting seeing him like play around with the different, he had like some water splash PNGs and stuff that he was playing around with to try and like overlay them and then add different like color correction and then blending, and he had to use like certain blending tools and stuff like that, all to do like just the simple water splash effect. And it really is a good reminder that like you can be as creative as you want to. Like your tools don't necessarily have to limit you to like the designs you want to do. Like people are capable of doing whatever they set their minds to. It really is just a matter of like how much work are you willing to put in, because like sure, like cutting out people with the pen tool isn't necessarily like the quickest way to do it, but it's the best way to do it, right? And that's what produces the best results. And it just means you have to put in effort and time into it. Of course, if you want to just kind of a janky cutout, you could go through with an eraser tool and erase the entire thing, but your results probably aren't going to look as good. That's a long rant just to say shout out to Tyler for going through and using the iPad app and kind of doing a different design approach. It's something I really appreciate, that creative approach to design. So I'm trying to figure out if he is going through and it looks like he's just erasing the background using some form of like an eraser tool in this app. I'm trying to, he commented, I'm pretty sure, what app he uses for this, because I was kind of wondering last time when we were going through and breaking down his design. But I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Also, Tyler, you'll have to fill me in if you're using like an Apple Pencil or if this is all like with your finger. I imagine like it must be nice using an Apple Pencil to go through and do all of this stuff, just because you can get into like the nitty gritty detail and actually move it around with your hand. That's one thing I always hate, like when you're designing on like a trackpad. I use my mouse sometimes, but a good bit of the time I use my trackpad. And it's kind of hard to get like really nitty gritty details in terms of like the gaps in between fingers and stuff like that with a trackpad. And I imagine just like having the ability to just literally use a pencil and like color it out would be super easy to do. So very cool that you kind of have that in your tool set. Going through and doing these shoelaces. Shoelaces are like the worst thing to cut out. Like sometimes I just completely disregard all the shoelaces and say, good enough. Okay, now it looks like we're doing some sort of selection tool. And this really is an interesting thing. So he went through and erased all of the edges of his, or maybe he just painted it white and now he's going through and using a selection tool to go through and create that effect. And I wonder if he's trying to go for like the white stroke outline effect. But we'll see here in a second. So now it looks like we are doing some color correction and some like fixes onto the Tiger Woods design, or the Tiger Woods image, just because he had like those chunks of grass that had flown up and gotten into his pants. So we're just trying to clean that up, it looks like. Very cool how he did that. That's also another thing, like using an iPad and using an Apple Pencil. I think like for some things it might not be ideal, but it might also be ideal for like doing highlights and shadows in designs, just because you really can get into like the nitty gritty with a brush tool. That's one of the things I kind of looked into, is getting like a Wacom tablet. I don't know how to pronounce it. But just like having the ability to then like, if you don't know a Wacom tablet, hate myself for pronouncing that wrong. I'll have to look up the pronunciation after this video. But essentially it's just like you plug it into your laptop and then you have the ability to, it's like essentially like an iPad without a screen, and you have like a little pen that you can use, and you have the ability to go through and use like a handheld brush kind of thing in Photoshop or in whatever software you want to use it for. I know some people use it for like engineering stuff or like 3D modeling and stuff like that. But it really would work well for design. Cool, so it looks like we're going through on the shoes now. And we have completely tweaked Tiger Woods' pants. Now we're going through and looks like he got this image off of Getty Images. I know some people have like some really cool secretive ways of going through and getting Getty Images for free. And to be honest, I don't know how that works. So maybe you guys can send me a message on Instagram and fill me in. But I also find that like, I know there are websites, it's like a Getty image converter or whatever, where you can like put in the link to the Getty image or whatever, and it'll give you like the actual image that you can use. But I find like when I've used those in the past, the image it gives back is like pretty pixelated and pretty low resolution. Maybe you could like take that and run it through one of the AI image upscalers that they have. Like I think one of them is like from Topaz. It's called Gigapixel. And I think that's one of those things where you can take it and it'll upscale any image you want to up to like a certain resolution. I don't know how good the results would be for something like that, but maybe if some of you guys have tried it, you can let me know down in the comments. So I really do like this kind of faded Tiger Woods effect in the back. I really like the way he used the gradient from the red to the dark red. That's also like such a good Tiger Woods staple, is just like the red shirt. I think several designs have used like that shade of red so far in round 2 of this competition. So it's cool to see kind of how that's going through. Looks like we have some stripes. Cool, cool, cool. Another thing I've gotten a lot of messages about recently is it's like a website called Photopea. Apparently it's like a free version of Photoshop. And every time I hear that, I kind of normally steer clear of it, but I think I might dive into it and see what I can come up with in terms of tutorials and stuff. But let me know in the comments if any of you guys use Photopea or have used Photopea before, because I'd be interested to kind of see just what you can do with free tools in Photoshop versus having to pay for whatever. I do like the cool like Tiger Woods stripe right there. Very cool. And now it looks like we're resizing just like that. Now that's interesting. So it looks like for the Woods text, he must have done that in like another, yeah, this looks like he did it in another program or something. And then he just made a like black and white image, and then he took that and then he's just doing like a multiply effect or a screen effect to get rid of all of the black parts of his image. That's again one of those things where in Photoshop it's pretty easy to do, but I applaud him for like the creativity and like playing around with the different apps and stuff to still get that same look. Now we have a little bit of a white rectangle kind of in the bottom, it looks like. Really playing around with, oh, it looks like, okay. Looks like he had duplicated it and then pasted it. Now we're gonna add a Nike logo in here in the bottom left and the Timo logo, very cool. I guess in this program you can do like a color overlay, just like in Photoshop, so that's cool. And now we have some kind of curve bend tool. I'm not really sure what this is. Kind of like, oh, is it just, oh, it's a ruler. Okay. So I guess like this is part of how he's using, like how he did like the straight lines earlier, is using the ruler that you can then go and just draw a straight line on. And then just going through and duplicating those. So lots of horizontal and vertical lines kind of like stuck together. Not sure how Nike feels about the 3 stripes, but we'll see how it goes. I do think like people ask me all the time, what is like a good way of like creating, like people that are just getting started in Photoshop or like have been doing it for some time but aren't necessarily getting the results that they look for. I think like a lot of people ask me like, how do I create like professional, good looking designs? And the truth is there's not like a secret formula that everyone has. It's like, oh, this is professional or whatever. My recommendation is always just like start simple. And that sounds like boring for a lot of people. Like you don't want to start with the most simple version of a design. You want to really dive in and add like a bunch of layers and a bunch of small text and all this stuff. And the cool, like you look at some of the really professional designers and they have like so much going on in your designs, and you think in order to create something that looks professional, you have to have a lot going on. And so one of my tips is always just like start simple, get the basics super perfected, and then once you have those like down, then you can move on. So for instance, like going through with cutouts, making sure those are perfect and you get them like really well done and nicely finished and everything. Same thing with fonts, like picking out good fonts that like will look good in your designs, picking out font pairings that look good together, thinking about placement in your image, like where certain things should line up in order to be a nice composition in your design. And if you can do that on the most basic, simple level, then it's easier to then take that and expand upon it and make it super complex. I say all of that to say, in terms of like making a simple design, a really easy way to make an awesome looking simple design is like what he did here with, you have a simple gradient in the background. It's like a red to a dark red. And then just put a cutout on top and some text. And that's all you need to make an awesome looking design. So it looks like we're getting into some shading here. Using some brushes and whatever this is. Looks like this is a flow airbrush. It's really fun seeing people that are good at doing like shadows and highlights and stuff. Like I know one of the guys in the competition, Ryan Morford, is insane at doing all of that. Like he gets into like the nitty gritty details with like in the shoelaces and stuff. He does the highlights, which is like an awesome design thing that he does. And so it's always fun like seeing how people go through and refine images and really make them pop. It's very cool. And it's very cool seeing this kind of process on an iPad. I know in Photoshop it's like very easy. You have like all those different blending modes and stuff. And so like instead of just doing like a white overlay and then like turning down the opacity, you have the ability to do like vivid light or some of those other ones like linear light and stuff like that. Which gives you the ability to kind of like play around with it a bit more. We have the foot shadows just like this. And then we have, oh, that's a fun texture right there. And I guess this is like a perspective tool. Okay. To be honest, so when they send over like these final versions, they send over their screen recording and then they send over like the PNG image that I can include. And to be honest, I didn't necessarily even notice the little background, like the little like marble texture thing he did for like the floor. But that's a cool little detail I didn't even notice. It's always fun, like, so each round we do this thing where like I send out the prompt to everyone, and I send it out before I like, this time around I let everyone know what the prompt was so they can design their own stuff if they're interested. But I send out the prompt, and then it's always fun like sitting and waiting, and there's like I give everyone like a week to do everything. I think this time I did a week and a half. But it's always fun like sitting and waiting and seeing what people can come up with. And I can't remember who was the first person to submit theirs. I think it might have been Jake Chambers. Might have been the first one. I can't remember exactly. But it's always fun, like you've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and then you finally see the results of like what they come up with, and you see like the cool recordings and stuff. And it's like a cool moment for me just to be able to go through and see what they came up with, for sure. Now, a subtle reminder, this whole prompt was that Tiger Woods is retiring, and you're going to make a graphic to honor Tiger Woods for like his career or whatever. And so this is part of kind of, and this is just putting in a paragraph text from Wikipedia. But so this graphic was essentially just meant to like honor the legacy of Tiger Woods in whatever way you want. And so what was actually so crazy is I announced this competition, and I think like the next day or 2 days later was when Tiger Woods ended up getting in that car crash, and it was like I felt like I had done something wrong and foreshadowed Tiger Woods getting hurt or whatever, which is not ideal, but there we go. So there is Tyler Moreno's graphic. I'll throw it up right here so you guys can check it out. just like going through it, I love the way that he incorporated the different reds, the different gradient. I love the way that he used the text. And I think it's very cool to walk through his creative process and see how he does everything on iPad. It's not something easy to do, but I know it takes a lot of creativity and dedication for that. So thank you so much, Tyler, for submitting this for the Sports Design School Playoff Round 2. Now, as a reminder, at the end of the video, you can go down to the link in the description where you'll be able to vote for your favorite. So thank you guys so much for checking out Tyler's, and now we'll move on to the next design. So we just finished up Tyler Moreno, and now we're moving on to our next contestant in the Sports Design School Playoff, which is JakeCreated. Now, Jake is an awesome designer. He is at JakeCreated on Instagram if you want to check him out. His bio says, "I like stocks, sports, and design." So very cool for that. I was looking through Jake's portfolio, and it looks like at some point he was an intern for Rice Athletics, which is very cool. And he had some really awesome stuff in his portfolio, so I'll make sure to link his Instagram down in the description so you can check out more on Jake. Now, this design was really cool, and I really enjoyed watching his process. I think he has like a really unique approach here. So let's just dive in and check out what Jake came up with. So it looks like we are in, and I'm going to go ahead and guess this is Lightroom. Yeah, I think Lightroom. And so we're going through and playing around with some of the some of the effects on our image. So playing around with the color grading, playing around with some clarity and texture, all the good stuff like that. Looks like he has some presets built in. And Jake, you'll have to let us know if there's any difference really between, I just kind of use Camera Raw Filter in Photoshop. I know Lightroom has a little bit more flexibility with what you can do with images. I know there's Lightroom and then there's Lightroom Classic. And I think Lightroom Classic is like the main one that's really good for just going through, and they have like so many different options in there. And I don't know if like the new Lightroom has those kind of things. So I'm not really sure. From kind of what I've played around in Lightroom, I think like Camera Raw Filter in Photoshop has a lot of the same kind of effects. And so you'll have to let us know if Lightroom is any better and if we should be switching over there. Very cool. So it looks like he used our soft light overlay kind of duplicate effect that we do here at Sports Design School. It's always nice seeing people like apply the stuff that we cover in our videos and use them in their actual design process. It's good to like know that we're actually helping people learn, so that's very cool. Tiger Woods' watch is massive, my word. Anyways, so it looks like we're going through select subject. I've got to be honest, I've been loving select subject recently. It's gotten so good. So I remember the first time they like announced select subject, where if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's where you press a button and it essentially does the cutout for you. And I remember the first time I did it, it was so bad. And to be honest, I was spending more time trying to clean up the select subject than I would have just using the pen tool and going through. And then recently, I don't know what it is, but they've really worked on the neural network behind the select subject and really refined it to where it's actually worked really well. I did some graphics. I had to do like an award series graphics for stuff I do at work, and it was like for women's basketball, like announcements or whatever for like player of the year and stuff. And so I had to do a lot of different cutouts at once, and it was a little bit frustrating because I had to do like so many cutouts, and I had to do it in like 2 days basically. And I just went through and did select subject for all of them, and the results were so good. I didn't even have to touch. I mean, I barely touched like maybe 3 of them of like the 20 cutouts that I did, which was super refreshing to be able to have like that time not wasted on just doing cutouts. So it looks like we're going through and cutting out the club here. And that's a little tough because like clubs are pretty metallic-y, so they pick up a lot of the color that's around them, so it's hard to truly cut them out. But it looks like Jake is doing a great job here. But you see what I mean? Like, because all the like place around him, because he's outside, is green, it makes like the metal itself look green. So I wonder if Jake will go through and like do some desaturation or whatever in that. And it looks like he actually just, instead of like repositioning the Tiger Woods thing just a little bit lower or scaling him up, he literally just like added more pant, which is definitely a good way of doing it, I suppose. Really interesting composition here so far. I'm trying to figure out what that trophy is that he's holding up. Is that a Masters trophy? Is that what it actually looks like? Like, I know like the green jacket is like the well-known thing, but adding a little bit of a back shadow to kind of separate the foreground and the background. And really going through and playing around with some different effects. That'd be interesting to see what this little rectangle, rounded rectangle at the bottom is. Oh, is it like a loading bar? Well, that's cool. Very cool indeed. Now we're going through just kind of readjusting everything to get it into a good spot. It's definitely tricky when you have a lot of stuff overlaid. Oh, I like that font right there, Retired. And let's see what font he ends up going with. See, and this is like a unique font. Like, I don't know if I necessarily like would have been like my first pick for sports design, but that's what makes it so great, is it's just like so different than what you expect. What is interesting is like he kind of has this retired position in the foreground. I wonder what he's going to put in like this black space back here. And that's actually an interesting thing. So he did like it looks like a Gaussian blur over the background, and then he went and painted it all out. And I don't know if he still has it applied, but going through and see, there's that red I was talking about. So everyone kind of uses that same Tiger Woods shade of red for a lot of their designs. It feels really weird because like growing up in my childhood, all the different stars were like Kobe was big, LeBron James was big, Tom Brady was big, but like these people were like in the beginning of their careers or in their prime. I remember like watching Tiger Woods like fairly early on in his career, and it was just like so electrifying to see like just how great he was. Like I remember I watched the first, didn't watch it live. I was not alive yet, I don't think. But I went back and watched the first ever Masters that Tiger Woods had won, like the first round, and I think he won by like maybe like 10 or something like that, something insane. And the dude's like literally like 18 years old. So, but it's crazy seeing all these guys get old and like get on to the point where they're close to retirement now. It's kind of sad. So now we have thank you in the background. And I do like the combination of that like kind of teal and the red. I think those look really good together. Now we have goat in the background. And again, the whole point of this whole thing was for it to be on a social media graphic. So you really want something that like you'd see on like Bleacher Report and stuff. And I do love the tall stretched font. And I like the stroke effect, that's pretty cool. And then bringing up kind of another rectangle. Oh, it's a clipping mask for the retired text. Cool. And then we're moving the T over. And actually, I made sure this time around. So if you remember in round 1, some people submitted videos and they were like pretty short. And then some people submitted videos and they were like kind of long and I had to speed them up and then whatever. So some of them like were pretty short and then some of them ended up being like really long. And then when sped up, it was just really hard to see. So I made like sure this round to try and limit everything between 15 to 20 minutes. So that way it's like just fast enough to where you can go through and see all of the process, but not like slow enough to where you're sitting there like waiting for them to cut out players, which can be a little bit monotonous sometimes. So now we have some split color between some red and some green. Oh, it's kind of, I see now what he's doing is you have like the red Tiger Woods red and then the green from the green jacket, and those are like the 2 colors of the design. That little stroke part of the G that's kind of left over there hanging is kind of interesting. Now we have a texture overlay. Another texture overlay. That looks like it's a paper texture. What is your favorite texture to use as an overlay? Like what is like your go-to? I think for mine, I just type in like film dust textures. But like, do you have like a specific like type of textures that you go after? Like, do you go after like distressed textures or whatever, or like torn paper textures or whatever it might be? Going through and picking a new font. You have to be careful when you say font because people that go to like college and get a degree in graphic design or whatever, there's like a big thing where you're supposed to call it like a typeface. So fonts are actually like the file itself. So like when you install like a .ttf file or an OTF file, that's technically a font. And apparently like when you're talking about like the thing itself, it's just supposed to be a typeface. So like people that are really picky about that stuff will like get so upset if you call it a typeface instead of a font. It's like who really cares? But so maybe I need to watch out for that. So it looks like we're adding the years somewhere onto this design, looking for a good place for them to go. Of all of my subscribers, let me know if I have anyone that has gone to school for graphic design or anyone that's just like doing anything kind of related. Because me personally, I haven't gone to school for graphic design. I do know, I follow a lot of people on Twitter that went to school for graphic design, just like different sports designers and stuff. And those are where I get some of those opinions on. Looks like he has like a cool gradient overlay on this text, on the kind of rectangle that he created. Looks like it disappeared for a second, now we're back. And now we switch the background from white to black. I think I like the white better. I'm not sure. They're just kind of different. Again, really running with the red and green kind of duotone. Not duotone, but like the red and green kind of paired together. And then I like that kind of, it looks like he switched typefaces with that goat text in the back. I kind of like the squared off one. Oh, I do kind of like the green overlay at the bottom. Now it looks like we're going through and like making some corrections. US Masters champion. Oh, so that's like, he's saying like 1997, 2001, blah, blah, blah. Those are the years he won the Masters. golf is an interesting thing where like, okay, 5 Masters championships, where like there's like all these different tours, right, and different events that people play, but then like the Masters is basically the Super Bowl, or at least I've always thought of it that way. I could be wrong. Okay, so we have the 5 Masters championships, adding some rectangles to the left and right, which is a good kind of like stylistic thing if you're trying to fill in some white space. And then adding a little bit of a highlight all the way around using like a white brush. And you can tell like at this point, it's like you're really just playing around with all the small details. Like I have a thing in my design process where like when I think I'm finished with a design, I'll take one rectangle and I'll make it like, I'll do like half of the screen and I'll make it like a solid color, and then I'll play around with the blending mode and see if there's any cool blending modes I can come up with, like with the rectangle and that color combination. And then like that will spark a whole new wave of designs and stuff to do. So it looks like we went through and did another overlay soft light effect, and now we're going through camera raw filter, going through and tweaking some of the highlights and shadows. Playing with the curves. I've really gotten into levels, like level adjustment tool recently. And then adding a color lookup on top. Ooh, I like that kind of red one. I like that one a lot too. I see a lot of people using color lookups, like different LUTs and stuff. Oh, and then now a little bit of a blur around the edge. That's a nice effect. And I really have liked the way he's kind of polished this up. And that's it. That's all we have here from JakeCreated. And I'll throw this back up just so we can take another look at it. So I really love the way that he played around with the different cutouts here. I really love the way that he played around with the reds and the greens together. I enjoyed the way that he kind of went through and polished everything up. I thought it was really cool to kind of walk through and see his process on that. It's also cool just to like see how he goes about like adding different like text and playing around with the layout and stuff like that, because like design is not like a, oh, check this box, check this box, and then done. It's about playing around with different things that like look good and some don't look good, and then coming up with a solution that looks best. And I think he really came up with a really sharp piece here. So a huge shout out to JakeCreated on Instagram for submitting your design for this round, and I'm super excited to see what the results are. Just a quick reminder, you can go down to the link in the description, and that's where you'll be able to vote for your favorite for this round. And I'll just kind of keep you guys updated on what the results are, and then I'll announce the winners here before too long, probably sometime next week. And then of course, like when that gets announced, those 2 winners will compete head to head for the next round, which will be our Sports Design School Playoff Championship. So this round is super important. It's important that you vote. But if you have enjoyed this video so far and enjoyed the content that we're putting out here at Sports Design School, make sure you drop a like on this video and subscribe if you aren't already. We've got lots of awesome videos just like this coming out, and we'll invite some of our subscribers to actually join in potentially more tournaments, more playoffs, more things like this in the future. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on those. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.